I still remember the first time I saw Azaryll. It wasn't in some quiet moment or a place of peace. No, it was in the chaos, the kind that fills the air with shouts, the smell of exotic spices, and the heavy tension of desperate souls trying to outbid each other for a prize far beyond anything I had ever imagined. The market on Draxel Prime was unlike any place on Earth. Towering tents and stalls stretched for miles, bursting with alien technology, rare artifacts, and beings from corners of the galaxy I had only read about. But amidst all this frenzy, one auction drew every gaze, every whisper, the bidding for the rarest possession in the universe, a love slave, as they called her. But the word was cruel and hollow compared to what I saw. She was unlike anything I expected. Azaryll wasn't just a possession. She was a storm wrapped in violet skin, her eyes glowing with a fierce intelligence that cut through the crowd like a laser. Her long, shimmering hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the market's harsh lights and fracturing them into streaks of silver and midnight blue. The crowd saw her as a commodity, some exotic prize to be won, but I saw something far more complicated. Something alive, raw, and untamed. As the auctioneer's voice rose, calling out numbers and names I barely recognized, the frenzy grew. The crowd's energy pulsed like a living beast, hungry and relentless. Offers flew like stars across the sky. Millions, billions of credits thrown at her like they were mere dust. Each bid echoed with more than money. It was a declaration of power, possession, and strangely, fear. But I was different, I wasn't here to claim her as a prize. I wasn't part of this ruthless game of wealth and control. I was here because I felt something I couldn't explain, a pull, an undeniable force drawing me to her. When her gaze met mine, something unspoken passed between us, a silent plea beneath the chaos, a spark in the dark. Everyone made their offers, each louder and more desperate than the last. But in the end, it was only me who stepped forward with a different kind of offer. Not of gold or power, but of freedom. I remember the gasps, the shocked silence, the disbelief that rippled through the crowd. Who was this human daring to break the rules? Who was this man who saw her not as a prize, but as a person? The moment I took her hand, the world seemed to shift. The market's roar faded into a distant echo, replaced by the quiet pounding of my heart and the soft, steady breath of Azaryll beside me. This was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I knew about love, betrayal, and the fight for freedom in a galaxy that saw her as nothing more than a slave. The moment I clasped Azaryll's hand, the cacophony of the auction house faded into a dull hum, replaced by an eerie stillness that clung to us like a second skin. But the silence was deceptive. The true weight wasn't in the bustling crowd. We had escaped. It was the invisible, unyielding chains that bound her soul, chains far more suffocating than the physical restraints we had left behind. I could feel it immediately. Her fingers trembled just slightly, the faintest tremor betraying the war raging within. Her eyes, vibrant pools of amethyst that seemed to shift with every flicker of light, were sharp, scanning the shadows like a predator wary of every whisper and footstep. She was alert, poised, but the tension coiled beneath her skin told a story of years spent in captivity, in servitude, in forced submission. The market was just the surface, the scars beneath were deep. Why did you do it? Azaryll's voice broke the quiet, soft, yet edged with something raw and unguarded, a mixture of hope, disbelief, and a brittle kind of defiance. Her question wasn't just curiosity, it was accusation, a challenge, and maybe, just maybe, a desperate plea for salvation. I searched for an answer that would soothe her, but truth poured out unfiltered, because I saw you. Not the slave they called you, not the prize, but the person beneath. And I refused to be a part of that cruelty. My voice was firm, unwavering. I don't know what comes next, but I'm here. Her gaze locked onto mine, sharp and unwavering, and in that moment, I sensed the fragile thread that connected her guarded heart to mine. You're the first human who's ever said that to me. Others? They see only ownership, desire to possess what they don't understand, but you see me. Her words weighed heavy, a bitter reminder of the countless betrayals that had shaped her existence. Azaryll wasn't merely a captive of physical chains, but a prisoner of a brutal system, a labyrinth of corrupt powers, merciless traitors, and alien overlords who dealt in flesh and souls without conscience. We slipped out of the auction house, moving through a maze of neon-lit alleyways where the air smelled of burnt ozone and exotic spices. The city around us pulsed with life and danger in equal measure. Alien tech flickered on rusted street signs. A chorus of languages, some guttural, some melodic, overlapped. It was a city where survival demanded cunning, speed, and often a cold heart. Despite her graceful movements, Azaryll carried herself like a warrior haunted by past defeats. Her every step was weighted with memories I could only imagine, whispers of nights spent in captivity, bargains struck in blood and fear, and fleeting moments of rebellion crushed before they could bloom. "What haunts you?" I asked after. A long silence. "Is it just the market? Or something worse?" She stopped abruptly beneath a flickering hollow sign advertising a bar called The Void's Edge. The neon blue glow painted her face with spectral light, illuminating the soft scars that traced her jawline. "I'm running towards freedom," she said quietly. "But freedom isn't just slipping out of chains or crossing a border. It's reclaiming yourself when everything you thought you were has been stolen. My people, they don't see me as Azaryll. They see a commodity, a tool, a weapon. The market's madness was just one chapter in a book full of horrors." I swallowed hard. This was no mere rescue. It was a rebellion against a universe that commodified life itself. Her fight was far from over, and I was suddenly painfully aware that I had stepped into a war I barely understood. "Who are they?" I asked, the question heavier than I expected. Azaryll's eyes darkened. "Powerful factions, the Consortium. They rule with invisible hands, trading influence and lives like currency. I was bred to serve their whims, to be a symbol, a love slave, a twisted mockery of affection designed to control and manipulate." The weight of her words settled in the chilly night air. The city buzzed around us, indifferent to our plight. "I won't let them take you back," I vowed, voice steady despite the storm raging inside me, a flicker of something. Gratitude, defiance, crossed her face before she masked it with cold resolve. "You've made a dangerous promise, Dylan." I looked at her, this alien woman with a past forged in pain and a future shadowed by enemies, and I knew that my life had changed. Forever. Protecting Azaryll wouldn't just be about keeping her safe. It would mean challenging everything I believed about loyalty, love, and what it meant to be free. Together, we stepped into the night, two fugitives in a galaxy that had already marked her as property and me as an outsider daring to defy the system. The market was just the beginning. The real fight was yet to come. The city's neon haze seemed to close in around us as we navigated the labyrinthine backstreets, far from the blaring auction house and its roaring crowd. Azaryll moved silently, like a shadow born from the darkness itself, her violet skin almost glowing faintly beneath the fractured lights. Yet beneath her grace, I sensed an undercurrent of tension, a fierce vigilance sharpened by years of survival. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick but necessary, as if the ghosts of her past whispered in the spaces between us, too fragile or too dangerous to name aloud. Finally, near an abandoned industrial sector where the air tasted of rust and forgotten dreams, Azaryll halted. Her eyes, usually so vibrant, clouded over with memories she had tried so desperately to bury. "Dylan," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I owe you the truth. The whole truth. You deserve to know why I was at that market, why I ran, and why taking me home is no simple act of kindness." I nodded, heart pounding with anticipation and dread. I was prepared for anything, but I knew this would be heavier than anything I'd ever faced. She took a deep breath and began. "I was born into servitude, not by choice but by design." Her hands clenched into fists. "The Consortium, an intergalactic cabal of elites, engineered my people for obedience and control. We were bred, not born, to serve their purposes. Our minds were implanted, with conditioning, memories twisted, wills subdued. I was meant to be a perfect tool, loyal, beautiful, silent. Her gaze hardened. But I wasn't perfect. I was a failure in their eyes, too independent, too wild. I resisted the programming. That resistance cost me everything, family, freedom, even my name. She looked at me then, her eyes blazing with a mixture of pain and determination. Azaryll is the name I chose for myself after escaping. It means rebellion in my native tongue, but even that choice was dangerous. I swallowed the lump in my throat. The woman before me wasn't just a victim. She was a fighter, carved by adversity and betrayal. I fled the Consortium's grasp, hoping to find a place where I could be free. But freedom in this galaxy comes at a price. The market was a trap, a cruel game they set to reclaim what they lost. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the raw wounds beneath her fierce exterior. I was auctioned off like a piece of merchandise, paraded in front of mercenaries, warlords, and power brokers who saw me as nothing more than a love slave, a perverse trophy to display their dominance. But I never stopped fighting. I squeezed her hand. And I promise, I'll fight. With you. She nodded, but the shadow in her eyes deepened. There's more you need to know. The Consortium has eyes everywhere. They won't stop until I'm back in chains or... worse. The gravity of her words settled like a stone in my chest. I wasn't just protecting a woman. I was defying an empire built on cruelty and control. We need allies, I said. People who believe in freedom, who want to see the Consortium fall. Azaryll's lips curled into a grim smile. Allies are rare. Trust is even rarer. But we have to try, I insisted, for your sake, and for all the others trapped in darkness. As the city's neon glow flickered around us, I realized this was no longer just a rescue. It was a rebellion born from the ashes of pain and hope. Together, we would rewrite our destinies. One step, one battle, one shattered chain at a time. The city's underbelly was a world unto itself, dark, chaotic, and alive with secrets that the gleaming towers above would never reveal. As Azaryll and I slipped deeper into the shadowed alleys, I felt the weight of every stare, every whisper, that seemed to follow us. Here, trust was a currency far rarer than credits, and more valuable than the most precious alien relics stacked high in the auction houses. Azaryll's grip on my arm tightened. If we want to find allies, she said quietly, we have to go where no sane person would dare to tread. That meant entering the Warrens, a maze of forgotten tunnels and hideouts beneath the city, where exiles, mercenaries, hackers, and smugglers sought refuge from the Consortium's ever-watchful gaze. The entrance was a narrow grate hidden behind a neon billboard flickering with holographic ads. A rough hand yanked it open from within, revealing a wiry man with cybernetic eyes that glowed faintly red. You're late, Azaryll, he said with a half-smile, his voice low and gravelly. And who's this? Dylan, she replied simply, eyes steady on the man. He's with me. The man's gaze swept me up and down, assessing, calculating. Name's Cade, he said. You're treading dangerous ground bringing a human here. The Consortium doesn't take kindly to our kind. I swallowed hard but kept my composure. I'm not here for a fight, yet. I want to help. I want to stand with Azaryll. Cade's cybernetic eyes flickered. After a tense moment, he stepped aside. Come on then, but remember, trust here is earned, not given. Inside, the Warrens were a labyrinth of rusted metal corridors and makeshift dwellings, buzzing with low conversations and the hum of hacked tech. The air smelled of oil, sweat, and something I couldn't quite place. Hope, maybe, or desperation. Azaryll led me to a dimly lit room where several figures waited. They were a mix of species. Humans with augmented limbs, alien warriors bearing scars and tattoos, and shadowy figures cloaked in mystery. Each carried the weight of their own stories, their own battles. One stepped forward, a tall woman with platinum hair and piercing green eyes. "I'm Solara," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "We've heard whispers of your defiance, Azaryll. The Consortium's grip tightens and we need a spark to ignite change." Azaryll nodded, eyes burning with determination. "I can be that spark, but I need your help. Information, resources, protection." Solara's gaze shifted to me. "And who is this?" "Dylan," Azaryll answered without hesitation. "He saved me when no one else would. He's willing to stand with us." A murmur rippled through the room, some skeptical, some intrigued. Solara stepped closer, studying me like a hunter sizing up its prey. Humans are unpredictable, but perhaps that's the advantage we need. The alliance was fragile, built on tentative hope and mutual necessity. The Consortium's reach was vast, and every move against it invited retaliation. As plans were whispered and strategies formed, I realized the depth of the war we were about to enter. It wasn't just about Azaryll's freedom, it was about dismantling an empire built on fear and control. And in this shadowed sanctuary, among broken warriors and dreamers, I found the first glimmer of a future worth fighting for. Days blurred into nights as we settled into the hidden refuge beneath the city, a fragile sanctuary amid the relentless grip of the Consortium. The faces around me were etched with stories of loss, rebellion, and unyielding will. Each one had a price to pay for freedom, and the weight of their sacrifices hung heavy in the stale air. Azaryll moved through this world like a shadow coming to life. She trained with the warriors, absorbed the whispered secrets of the hackers, and strategized. With Solara and her council, every step she took seemed to pull her further from the terrified girl I had first met at the auction, and closer to the leader this fractured alliance desperately needed. But the deeper we sank into this web of resistance, the clearer it became that freedom was no simple gift. It came at a price, and that price was steep. One evening, as the dim lights flickered over the makeshift war room, Solara turned to me, her green eyes sharp as knives. "You don't understand what you're up against, Dylan," she said quietly. "The Consortium isn't just a government or a cartel. It's a machine designed to crush hope and devour dissent. They will hunt you, Azaryll, and anyone foolish enough to stand with her." I met her gaze, unflinching. "I'm not afraid." Solara smiled sadly. "You should be." That night, sleep was elusive. I watched Azaryll from across the room as she pored over star charts and encrypted messages, her expression fierce yet haunted. The weight of her past and the uncertainty of our future seemed to press down on her slender shoulders. I moved closer, unable to resist. "What are you thinking?" She looked up, eyes glinting with a mixture of resolve and vulnerability. "About what freedom really means. It's not just escaping chains or changing locations. It's about reclaiming your soul after it's been shattered. And sometimes it means sacrificing parts of yourself you never imagined losing." Her words struck deep. I realized then that her fight was more than physical. It was a battle for identity, for the very essence of who she was. Days later, news arrived that shattered our fragile calm. The Consortium had sent enforcers, merciless hunters, trained to track and eliminate dissidents. The Warrens erupted into controlled chaos as alarms blared and plans shifted with desperate speed. Azaryll stood at the center of the storm, her violet eyes blazing with fierce determination. "We fight!" she declared, voice echoing through the cramped chamber. "Not just for me, but for everyone the Consortium has broken." The battle was brutal and swift. In the narrow tunnels, blaster fire echoed, shadows danced in the glow of explosions, and cries of defiance mixed with pain. I fought beside Azaryll, our movements synchronized in a dance of survival and rebellion. But the cost was clear. Friends were lost, alliances tested, and the price of freedom etched itself in every scar and every heartbeat. As dawn broke over the battered city, I looked at Azaryll, stronger, fiercer, yet marked by the struggle. The road ahead was perilous, but Together, we had taken the first step toward reclaiming a future no one had dared to imagine. The taste of victory was fleeting, a bitter echo fading too quickly into the shadows of suspicion. After the fierce battle that rocked the Warrens, a fragile calm settled over our ragtag alliance. But beneath the surface, I sensed a storm brewing. One, not of blaster fire or Consortium enforcers, but something far more insidious. Betrayal. Azaryll moved with cautious grace, her violet eyes sharper than ever. She trusted few, and rightly so. The Consortium's influence was like a poison that seeped into every corner, infecting even those we called allies. One evening, as we gathered to plan our next move, a stranger arrived, a man claiming to be a defector from the Consortium, bearing intelligence that could turn the tide in our favor. His name was Varek, a sleek figure with calculating eyes and a voice smooth as silk. At first, his knowledge seemed invaluable. Secret supply routes, hidden outposts, and weaknesses in the Consortium's armor. But something about him unsettled me. The way he avoided direct eye contact, the slight twitch in his smile, and the too perfect answers to difficult questions. I voiced my concerns quietly to Azaryll, but she was willing to take the risk. Desperation, she said, demanded allies wherever they could be found. Days passed, and with Varek's guidance, we launched a series of covert strikes that crippled several Consortium operations. The Alliance's morale soared, but my unease grew. Then, during a reconnaissance mission, a brutal ambush nearly wiped out a team of our best fighters. The attack was precise, tipped off by someone who knew our plans intimately. I confronted Varek in the shadows of the Warrens, my voice low and fierce. Who sent you? Why betray us? His smile was cold, devoid of warmth. You misunderstand, Dylan. I serve only one master now, the Consortium. You and your precious rebellion are mere pawns in a game far larger than you realize. The truth hit me like a blast. Varek was a double agent, sent to dismantle our fragile resistance from within. Racing back, I warned Azaryll. Her reaction was a mixture of anger and grim resolve. We've been bleeding trust, she said, voice heavy. But we cannot let this break us. With fierce determination, we purged the traitors, tightened our security, and forged bonds that could withstand the Consortium's corrosive reach. The betrayal was a harsh lesson, but it steeled our resolve. I looked at Azaryll then, not as a victim or prize, but as a warrior hardened by fire, someone I was bound to protect, no matter the cost. Our fight was no longer just for freedom. It was for survival, for hope, and for the chance to rewrite the destiny forced upon us. The shadows of betrayal still lingered like a dark mist over our alliance, but something new had begun to bloom between Azaryll and me, a fragile, unexpected bond forged in the crucible of battle and shared survival. It was a connection neither of us had sought but couldn't deny, something deeper than gratitude or necessity. In the quiet moments between planning raids and dodging Consortium patrols, I found myself drawn to her not just as a comrade, but as someone whose presence pulled at the edges of my soul. Azaryll, the fierce warrior with violet eyes that could cut through steel, showed me glimpses of vulnerability. Moments when the walls she built around herself softened, and I saw the girl who had dreamed of freedom long before I ever met her online. Evening. As the cold stars blinked over the city, we sat together on a rooftop overlooking the sprawling neon jungle. The hum of distant ships and the faint murmur of life below wrapped around us like a lullaby. You ever wonder what life would have been like if none of this happened? I asked, breaking the silence. Azaryll's gaze drifted upward, tracing the constellations. Sometimes, she admitted, I imagine a world where I wasn't bred to be a slave, where I could have chosen my own path without fear. I nodded. I think about that too. But maybe our past doesn't define us. Maybe it's what we do now that matters. Her eyes found mine, and for a moment, the battle-hardened warrior disappeared, replaced by someone searching for hope. You make it sound simple. Maybe it isn't. But we have each other now. And sometimes, that's enough. She reached out, her hand brushing against mine, a touch that spoke volumes, of trust, of longing, of a promise not yet spoken. Our lives were a whirlwind of danger and uncertainty. Yet in that fleeting moment, I felt something solid, something real. The war against the Consortium had brought us together, but it was this fragile bond that gave me strength to face the darkness ahead. Little did we know, our connection would soon be tested by forces more ruthless than the enemy at our heels, forces that would challenge not only our fight for freedom, but the very heart that beat between us. The final confrontation came faster than I expected, a storm of fire and fury crashing down on the hidden sanctuary we had come to call home. The Consortium, enraged by the rebellion's growing strength and the spark Azaryll had ignited, unleashed their full might to crush us once and for all. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. Blaster fire tore through the shadows as alarms blared, the cacophony of war drowning out all else. We fought desperately, side by side, every move a dance of survival and defiance. Amidst the chaos, I caught sight of Azaryll, wounded but unyielding, her violet eyes blazing like twin stars against the darkness. Every scar, every hardship had forged her into something more than a survivor. She was a symbol of rebellion, of hope. We made our way to the heart of the assault, where the Consortium's command ship hovered like a dark sentinel. The plan was reckless but necessary: disable their communications to buy the rebels time. As we infiltrated the ship, betrayal struck once more. A trusted ally revealed as a traitor, opening fire and forcing us into a brutal fight for our lives. But Azaryll, with strength I hadn't known she possessed, shielded me from the blast, taking a wound meant for me. In that moment, time slowed. I cradled her, blood staining my hands, and whispered promises I never thought I'd say aloud. Her fingers twitched and she looked at me, breath shallow but fierce. We're free, Dylan. Because you saw me, not the chains, but the heart beyond. With a final surge of strength, we destroyed the command systems, crippling the Consortium's grasp. As alarms faded and reinforcements arrived, we escaped into the night. Back on solid ground. Beneath, a sky streaked with dawn's first light, Azaryll's wounds began to heal, and so did something within me. The chains that bound her, once thought unbreakable, lay shattered at our feet. But the true victory wasn't just freedom from the Consortium. It was the bond forged in fire and defiance, the love that neither slavery nor betrayal could destroy. Together, we stood facing a future uncertain but ours to shape. The market's roar was gone, replaced by a new song, the song of two souls once captive, now unbound, writing their own destiny among the stars.